to be a bit chilled because when I presented the MPS last Friday, some people thought, oh, he has a military background. So today I am speaking like a civilian. We thought we would come here today to try and unpack the monetary policy statement that we presented last Friday. Because after presenting it, some people still had questions, some people had suggestions, and we are going to use this forum to ensure that by the time we leave this room, we are all on the same page as far as the way forward for our currency and our economy is concerned. As I said last Friday, we first of all asked ourselves, what is it that we are trying to address? What are the problems that we are trying to address before we even talk of coming up with a monetary policy statement? Because if you don't know what's ailing you, it's very difficult for you to find the medication for it. So in our brainstorming session, and it was not just us, we consulted CZI, we consulted Chamber of Mines, we consulted all other business organizations, we consulted civic society, we even had experts from the World Bank coming to assist us, and a lot of what we have in this monetary policy statement was thanks to their contribution. And I think I did acknowledge their assistance on Friday when I presented the MPS. So, in our brainstorming, we found that the issues that needed to be addressed are, number one, the need for a stable and solid national currency. Up until now, that has been lacking. We also realize that there is need for us to build market confidence and also policy credibility. We have been accused in the past of shopping and changing when it comes to policy. And also, we realize that there was need for us to have a sustainable exchange rate. The other factor was the need for us to have a stable and sustainable macroeconomy. We have strategic documents like NDS1, Vision 2030, very well articulated, but it looked like through the behavior of our citizens, the currency was running in the opposite direction, whereas NDS1 and Vision 2030 was trying to direct us in a certain direction. So we now want to realign ourselves with Vision 2030 and NDS1. Of course, there's also the need for regional and global best practice. There are certain standards that are expected out of a central bank, out of a monetary policy, that should subscribe to regional benchmarks. I will not go through the next two slides on the global environment and the domestic economy. Suffice to say that from a global perspective, we know of the disturbances in Ukraine and the impact, downstream impact it has had on our economy. And locally, we know of the impact of the El Nino drought and how it is going to affect our ability to feed the nation. And I can assure you that the permanent secretary here has got it all sorted out. So don't worry, there is no one who is going to starve in this country as long as he is there. So we then said, what are the strategic pillars on which we want to anchor our monetary policy statement? The first one, obviously, is to restore price and exchange rate stability. If you go through the Reserve Bank Act, that's one of the main functions of a central bank, price and exchange rate stability. That's why I'm there. And that is what we are hoping to achieve with these new measures that we introduced. There's also the need to remonetize the local currency. It had gone up to an exchange rate of 33,000. And I think at one stage, you got tired of chasing the parallel market, and the parallel market started retreating. Now, we want to give you a stable currency through the remonetization that has taken place. Of course, there was no longer much confidence in our currency. There was no longer much trust in our policies and in our policy credibility. And I think with these measures, we are going to restore that. So we came up with 5 strategic focus areas in crafting the monetary policy statement, which is currency and exchange rate stability, a sustainable financial sector, foreign exchange mobilization and reserve accumulation, and the promotion of the demand for our local currency. And I'm going to be covering those as we go through. On the recalibration of our monetary policy framework, we said we need to adopt a refined interbank foreign exchange system under a willing seller, willing buyer arrangement. There is also a need for optimal money supply management. And also, we introduced a new structured currency, which I'll talk about. And there was also the need to anchor that currency on something tangible in the form of gold, other precious metals, and foreign exchange reserves. And then we then said, over and above that, there's need for other measures to anchor that currency. So, starting with the determination of a market-determined exchange rate, adoption of a market-determined exchange rate, you will have noticed that from January, the central bank allowed the exchange rate to float. Banks were allowed to quote whatever exchange rate they wanted, and I think we moved from a rate of about 6,000 in November, and as of Friday, last week, we were already on 33,000. This was all through market forces. It is you who asked for it, and it is you who pushed the rate to that level, and it is you who were comfortable with the rate at that level. So I think that one is a measure that we introduced way before we even announced the monetary policy statement. Under the refined foreign exchange management system, we are going to have a willing seller, willing buyer arrangement like we have had from January. And it started yesterday, and I'll be giving you the results as I go on. We will continue to make sure that the market liquidity from a foreign exchange perspective is kept intact. And by this I mean that we're going to be applying the 25% surrender requirements, some of them, to oiling the foreign exchange market. On money supply management, I did say again last Friday that if printing money was a solution, we would all be very rich. But it's not, and we will not print. That is a promise that I'm making you. That the zig you are seeing in the market, if they are to grow, it will be because we have upped our reserves in line with the productivity in the economy. So we are going to maintain a tight monetary policy stance. And above all, all the quasi-fiscal operations that previously were done, and by the way, I must say that they were done for a purpose. But in the ordinary course of business, this is the responsibility of the Minister of Finance, and the PEMSEC is here. We have moved all quasi-fiscal obligations from the central bank to the ministry, where they are now going to be managed. Going forward, there is not going to be any further quasi-fiscal operations on the part of the central bank. I did mention on Friday that my job description, just by reading the Reserve Bank Act, will keep me busy for 48 hours a day if there's anything like that. So I cannot do PEMSEC Guamatanga's job. It is his job to find money and to finance the economy. My job, as I said earlier on, is currency and price stability, leading to containment of inflation. And that's what we are going to do at the central bank. And we are in full agreement with the ministry. In that vein, if you read the Banking Act, you will see that there is a limit as to how much we can lend to the government. People have accused the Reserve Bank in the past of lending to government. PEMSEC here will tell you, he has never borrowed money, I don't know since for how long. There is no overdraft from the Minister of Finance in the books of the central bank as we speak. He's operating a surplus budget, and it's been like that, and he has not borrowed. And he will not borrow. But that clause is just there in the unlikely event that he has to borrow, which I don't foresee. We can only lend to him up to the limit. Believe you me, the central bank is independent. The minister and the permanent secretary cannot come to me and say, give us this money. Because PEMSEC, you know, if you come, I'll say no, and there's nothing you can do. Because that is what is in the act. So, social media goes around and say, oh no, is the central bank going to be independent? Are they not going to be pressurized by George? He's not going to do anything like that, because that is not what is in the act. He cannot be issuing instructions, illegal instructions. It's not possible. So I just thought I would emphasize that point. Number one, no more quasi-fiscal operations. Number two, no lending to government, and it has never happened. I would want to see the day when you come and say, please, can I borrow? He still hasn't. Okay, I'm still new, but I don't think he's going to come, because he didn't come. Then the introduction of the new structured currency. I gave you a definition of the structured currency last Friday, but just to keep it simple, it is a currency which is pegged on a basket of reserves. And these reserves can be nostro balances, can be gold, can be other precious minerals. But more importantly, a central bank cannot issue currency beyond the level of reserves that it has. And I think I'll be telling you exactly what we have by way of reserves. We opened the vaults of the central bank last week on Thursday. It's a first in this country. It's never been done. I invited Echi to the Reserve Bank to say, Your Excellency, I've taken over as governor of the central bank. This is what I found in the vaults. It's all there. Not a single ounce of gold was stolen. Not a single dollar was missing. Not a single ounce of platinum was missing. And we invited the press to witness that. The reason for that was that we want to demonstrate transparency. Whatever we're going to do is going to be done in a transparent manner. So, as of Friday, when we announced the monetary policy statement, we had nostro balances of 100 million US dollars. We also had 2,522 kilograms of gold. And if you use the gold prices at Friday, it was worth about 185 million. So in total, as of Friday, we had total reserves of 285 million US dollars. There, of which 1 ton of the 2.25 tons, 2.5 tons is offshore. Again, for a strategic reason. Because if we need to dispose of it quickly to liquefy it into cash, we can easily do it when it's out there. It's a deliberate move on our part. Some of the gold is here locally, some of the gold is offshore. Now, so total reserves of 285 million. Base money, total reserve money in the economy as of Friday was 2.6 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. On Friday, you find that we had just over 80 million, we rounded it up to 90 million worth of currency in circulation. I think some of you are already doing the maths. If you want to bet against ZIG, I said on Friday, it's game on. I can buy all the ZIG that we have, all of it, and still remain with change, not even touching gold. And then the other measures that I'm going to talk about later on will affect you. Why? Because you will be looking for ZIG, Nemas Zomatuku, and you won't find it. And it will be me, us, Reserve Bank, selling that ZIG to you at our price. So, starting from Friday, we're going to do the conversion, and we're converting Zimbabwe dollar RTGS balances into ZIG. Zimbabwe gold is our new currency. The code is going to be ZIG, capital Z, small I, capital G. Why ZIG? I was saying each country names its currency after what it considers to be precious to it. In Botswana, it's a desert. They value rain. If you didn't know, Pula means rain. In Zimbabwe, we value gold. We have plenty of it. And that is why we named our currency ZIG, Zimbabwe gold. So, in arriving at the swap rate, we considered the price of gold as of Friday, the closing exchange rate as of Friday, and you can do the maths. You can either, first of all, convert your Zim dollars into US dollars using the rate that we had. Then you know the price of gold in US dollars, and 1 ZIG is equal to 1 milligram of gold, and it gives you the answer. So, in that respect, we arrived at a starting exchange rate of 13.64 to the US dollar at a conversion factor of 2,498.7242. Take note, in the interest of transparency, we could have rounded this to 2,500. But no, I know there are some of you social media trolls who will say it was supposed to be 2,500, 2,498.7242. They made it 2,500, therefore they took 2 cents from me. No, the exchange rate had to be as accurate as possible. Hence the 4 decimal places that we are seeing. So, ZIG notes are going to be issued in denominations ranging from a quarter ZIG coin, half ZIG coin, and also knots all the way up to 200. I did show you the samples of the knots last Friday. Unfortunately, I don't have them with me today, but they have been splashed all over media, and you have seen them. So, the transacting public will then be swapping the ZiG balances, ZiG notes, into the Zimbabwe dollar balances and Zimbabwe dollar notes into ZiG. Now, on the exchange front, I have explained to you how we converted your Zimbabwe dollars into ZiG. But going forward, the exchange rate is going to be market determined, as it has been in the past. I did tell you that the starting exchange rate for ZiG was 13.64. Yesterday, the market traded. Several banks traded. And ZiG strengthened to 13.5348. Through no intervention on the part of the central bank, but through the market selling each other currency. And that is the way we want it to be. However, the central bank has got enough resources, enough reserves to intervene if we think that the rate is going out of kilter. We can come in and buy all the ZiG. Or if there is no more ZiG, we can come in and sell. That is the role of the central bank, to make sure that they regulate the exchange rate. But it's going to be market forces. It's up to you, the banks. I did say to you on Friday, if you want to take a bet on ZiG, go ahead. I have enough by way of reserves, 100 million US dollars, to buy everything that we have to sell. So if you are going to go to the parallel market, I don't know why you would be going there. Because if you've got any legitimate foreign invoice that you want paid, we should be able to meet it. So I don't know what the parallel market people are going to do. And I don't feel sorry for them, because we've never wanted them to exist. I hear yesterday they spent the day basking in the sun at Zimex Mall, plotting their next move, but there is nothing to plot. So, in trying to make sure that we keep a tight monetary position, we've come up with some measures. As regards auction allotment obligations, those of you who had gone to the auction from August all the way up to November, December, when we closed the auction, we are going to refund you your money. When I got into the central bank, I was tempted to say, we'll give you what you gave us. Then my colleague said, but the exchange rate has moved. So we're going to give you your NNCDs, your money through NNCDs, but over a period of 24 months. We'll lock it away for 24 months at an interest rate. So you get a return. Good thing is, you now have a stable investment. You hedged, so it's good. And you are also going to get a return on it. The same applies to outstanding auction payments. There are some people who had paid their forex to Treasury and had not yet been paid for that forex. These ones are going to be in NNCDs for 1 year at the same interest rate. Interest rates, because ZiG is a new currency, we have now had to recalibrate the interest rates. And I did announce on Friday that the overnight accommodation rate has now been set at 25% per annum. The bank policy deposit facility rate at 12.5% per annum. resulting in an interest rate corridor of between 11% and 25% per annum. But I must say that the bank policy rate is subject to review from time to time by the Monetary Policy Committee. I also did mention that banks are in the habit of wanting to take depositors' money and not paying interest. And this time around, we are saying the minimum savings and time deposit rates, that is the minimum. We're not saying you can pay more, but the minimum that we expect you to pay is for savings 9 percentage points below the bank policy, the bank deposit facility rate of 12%. In other words, 12.5% minus 9 is what you pay for savings balances. And 12.5% minus 7.5 is what we pay for time deposits. Statutory reserves for local currency, there's no change. 15% for demand deposits and 5% for savings and time deposits. On foreign currency, I did say to the banks when I met them on Friday morning that when you lend money from domestic foreign currency balances, there is an element of money creation in there. And we need to rein in on the creation of virtual dollars. And in that respect, we have upped the statutory reserve ratio for forex demand FCA to 20% from 15%. Otherwise, the statutory reserve ratio for savings and time deposits remain the same at 5%. We, through our open market operations in the past, we had issued banks with NNCDs in an effort to rein in on the amount of money in circulation. These NNCDs are going to be converted into 1-year NNCDs so that we maintain a tight rein on the level of liquidity in the economy. Treasury bills that were previously issued in Zimbabwe dollars will be converted to ZiG. We are currently in conversation with the PS, the ministry, for us to come up with an appropriate yield curve so that we can then reprice those treasury bills. You would have seen that they've, for now, temporarily been decoupled from the CSD system so that we go through that exercise. We will end up with some treasury bills for 1 ZiG, 10 ZiG. And I've had a discussion with the PS, and he said those ones we may just have to pay you off. We can't run a treasury bill book for anything, maybe even less than 1,000 ZiG. I don't know, we'll agree a figure. Gold-backed digital tokens will continue to be issued if we think it's necessary to manage liquidity, but they will no longer be called gold-backed digital tokens. They will be called GBT. Codes are supposed to be 3 letters, not 4 letters, so you can't call them GBTT. So they will now be called GBT, gold-backed digital tokens. So, earlier on, I talked of the need to make the Zimbabwe dollar, the ZiG, a sought after currency. We have to create demand for ZiG. And in discussions that we had with the PS, he has agreed that going forward, 50% of QPD payments will be done in ZiG. So take a moment to reflect on this. There is only 80 million US dollars worth of ZIG in this market. I don't know how much he collects every QPD. Divide that by 2. My guess is that if you don't start looking for ZIG now, and you start looking for it in June, it will come to you at a price. So this is just sound advice. I'm just giving you advice to say, if I were you, if I were a supermarket and I collect ZIG, I'll bake it and put it in a fixed deposit, waiting for June. Again, we have a statutory instrument, SI 218 of 2023. It's very clear, it's the law. We don't break the law here. It says that we are going to be in a multi-currency environment until 31 December 2030. That is not changing, it's there. However, we also need to start promoting increased use of the ZIG, such that maybe right now we are on 80-20. If we could get to 70-30 after some time, maybe by next year, 60-40, maybe by 2028, 50-50. And when you get to 50-50, you find that people will be indifferent as to which currency they are using. And that's how you move out of dollarization. It's not an overnight thing. We cannot just wake up and announce that tomorrow we are going to be using ZIG 100%. It's going to be a gradual process, and it will be well managed. And remember what I said earlier on, ZIG can only be increased if we have adequate reserves to increase it. Where are we going to be getting the reserves? Treasury has been kind enough to say all royalties for precious minerals that are being paid will be paid into the central bank for reserves. So we collect royalties in the form of gold, platinum, and other precious minerals like diamonds. Where it is those minerals we sell and convert to gold, or sell and convert to Forex. That's how we are going to be building our reserves going forward. Also, Treasury has agreed that of the surrender, Forex surrender, I did say that 50% of it, we're going to sell it to the market immediately. In other words, if we have a surrender of $1,000, the central bank will approach the market and say we got $500 for sale. That is cash flow neutral. There is no money printing there. The money is coming from one bank in ZIG and going to the other bank that is surrendered the US in ZIG, and the other bank collects the US. The remaining 50%, 25% of it will be bought by Treasury but used to boost the reserves of the central bank, and the other 25% will meet their own foreign currency obligations. So that is the arrangement. So we're not going to be static on reserves. We're going to be building up those reserves as we go. So how far have we gone with this? Just to give you an update on where we are. We announced the MPS on Friday, the 5th of April. The legal framework for us to put this currency into circulation was also issued on the same day, SI 60 of 2024. And we issued various directives to the banks guiding them on how they were supposed to be implementing this. And I can report that a significant number of banks have already fully converted. We got one or two, but I think by the close of business today, we should have all banks fully functional on ZIG. I had complaints that why did we delay the issuance of the actual notes? When you issue a currency, you have to go through an extensive education campaign to tell people about the features of that of that currency, and also to explain how it is going to work. We do not want a situation where someone prints some bond paper and goes to some rural area and buys cattle using them. We want the people out there to be educated that this is what the money looks like. And this is why we said the fiscal notes will be available around 30 April 2024. In the meantime, you are going to see posters, you are going to see explanations on Radio Zimbabwe, on community radio stations, in the various media that we have in the country. So, in a nutshell, that is where we are as far as the introduction of the currency itself. And after we have done all this, it is our expectation that we should be able to rein in inflation to not more than 5%. In fact, we are looking at between 2 and 5% by the end of the year. So that is the monetary policy statement as we announced it on Friday. I have been following social media, people's reactions, and what really saddens me is this demon that has affected Zimbabwe, where we tend to be very negative. And it is my prayer that we be exorcised of this demon. Why can't we, for a change, say, why not? Why can't this be done? The first question that I was asked on Friday was, what are you going to do if it fails? Why should it fail?
Thank you. I think Governor kubva pamaka announce musi wechishanu mugovera nesvondo vanhu vanga vasina mari yekushandisa. Zvakatinetsei musi wemuvhuro kuti vanhu vauye kumabasa, kumakombi, iye zvinezvi ukamupa dhora vari kufamba nemapeti nemachocolate okuti ndokudzorera chocolate nekuti handina change. Saka paida a smoother transition, paine alternative yekuti vanhu varambe vachitransacta, nekuti mabhengi mobile platforms akangoitwa discontinued abruptly, and kumashopu iye zvinezvi rimwe dambudziko ratanzwa nderekuti kune mamwewo mashopu vari kuramba ZWL notes. Asi kubva zuro nanhasi vamwe vachona tiri kutaura navo. Saka ndingati mamwe ma-issues atakanonga, and we should always try to make sure that a currency changeover does not affect the transacting public. We reduce and mitigate. Price and exchange rate stability is very key and welcome to the retail sector. Currently, Governor, ku retail neku wholesale ku formal ndiko kuri kutambirwa, kwanga kuchiri kutambirwa Zimbabwe dollar, kumwe kwese richirambwa zvaro. Asi taizoshaya kuti toendesepi kunze kwekuendesa kumabhanga, nekuti kubhadhara kwanga kuchinetsa, vanogadzira zvinhu vanga vakurirambawo, kana vanenge vachiri bvuma vanga vachichaja premium. So tiri kudavira kuti kuuya kwezig kuchagadzirisa matambudziko ese iwaya atanga tichisangana nawo. Uyezve smaller denominations, Governor, idanho rakanaka, nekuti kuzvitoro ndofunga vakawanda venyu muri kupuwa masweets sechange, vamwe muri kupuwa mabill points. Kunyange dai zvazvo vakawanda ndofunga hatichanyore nekuverenga, asi unotoimanikidzirwa. So mamwe ematambudziko asolvewa nezig. Uyezve Governor, ndinotenda kuti pamaka announce musi wechishanu, musi wemugovera takazoona statement yaiti macoins nemanotes achazoya musi wa30. Danho rakanaka, asi ndiri kuona kuti taramba tichistava market. Kunyange dai zvazvo electronic zig yatanga zuro, asi vanhu vari kuda macoins nemanotes kuitira kuti varambe vachitenga matomatoes avo, uye kuti reduce appetite ye-US dollar. Nekuti pamwe zvichida patinozosvika musi wa30, appetite ye-US yacho inenge yakwira zvakare. Kuzoidzikisa zvinogona kuzoramba zvichitinetsa. So those are some of the issues. Governor, market determined exchange rate is something that is quite welcome. Education and awareness, I think the monetary policy statement should be found in all the 16 official languages. And the Governor, ndine chivimbo chekuti communications department reserve bank harifane kuti rimirire social media ishape narrative. The narrative was shaped by the social media, and Saturday, Sunday, zvichida pamwe bhanga rinenge rakavharwa ivo vanenge vatoriwo kumba, asi social media haivate, haizorore 24 hours inenge ichingonginga chete. Saka takaona isusu even calculations akabuda asi angazwisisike, asi vanhu vanenge vaconsumer. So that consumption kuzoirevesa, sometimes it's very difficult. The discontinuation of the auction, I'm happy, Governor, that companies will be paid their money, and of course the concerns, just like my brother Kamungerem raised, is on the duration. Taxation 50% USD, 50% ZIG on QPDs. I think that's a very welcome development. We need to continue to create a demand for our ZIG, so that it is not pushed away by the USD. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Sorry, McDonald, just lastly, the issue 118A of 2022, Governor, inosungira ma-retailers nema-wholesaler kuti kana vachiprisa vanoshandisa interbank exchange rate plus 10%. Icharamba iripo here kana kuti yatobva since tane market yakudetermine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'll give it to our esteemed governor. I know you were busy taking notes as the gentleman was speaking, so if there are any other critical issues that were raised out you'd like to address at this point in time, you can go for it.
Yeah, thank you very much for those interesting comments, and also for the support you are giving to the new structured currency. Maybe let me start by addressing the last question. ZIG as a currency is going to be a very stable currency. You would have noticed that yesterday it actually strengthened compared to the opening exchange rate that we had following Friday's change. So here is the maths. If you are a retailer and you put 10% on the exchange rate of the ZIG, you are most likely going to be outside the market. So it's irrelevant whether that 10% is there or not. In fact, it has just killed itself, because just imagine if you put 10% on top of a stable exchange rate, where are you going to be? Are you going to be able to sell your goods? So you are going to moderate yourselves actually. So I guess I've answered your question on that one.
Sorry, Governor. It's a legislation. It's actually legislated. So the Financial Intelligence Unit of the Reserve Bank has been enforcing it on retailers and wholesalers to say when you are pricing after receiving your goods from the manufacturer, you must apply the interbank exchange rate plus 10%.
Well, I think you are probably misinterpreting it. If you don't apply it and you just take the interbank exchange rate as it is, you are not flouting the law. So the point I was trying to make is, don't apply it, but don't apply more than 10%, but don't apply it at all. You get what I'm saying? So, because if you apply it, your exchange rate, instead of being 13.5, is going to be 14 point something. You are going to be way out of the market. You won't be able to sell your goods. Then there are some comments that have been made on the informal sector and the need to encourage them to bank. We at the Central Bank are very keen on financial inclusion. In fact, one of our deputy governors, Dr. Chipika, that's what she does 80% of her time. Right now, as we speak, there are teams from the Central Bank out there in the rural areas trying to educate the public on the need to make sure that they bank. And I think we are achieving quite some progress in that respect. It's something that we will continue trying to embark on. When the currency is stable, you will find that naturally people will bank. The reason why they were not banking was because you put the money in the bank today and by Monday it exchanged its value and lost it. So why would you do it? But if you got a stable currency, you should see people begin to save and you should see people begin to bank. There was also a point mentioned on the challenges that the combis are having. I think, let me emphasize here and now that between now and the 30th of April, the bond notes are still legal tender. Banks can pay them out to their customers even on payday. People should be able to use those to transact and for change. It's only after the 30th of April that we will be introducing the new notes and coins. So for now, if someone wants to charge, if someone gives you 100 ZiG, you divide that by the factor of 2,000, round it up to 2,500. And that is the equivalent in ZiG, and you can transact. You can give someone change on that basis. So if the message has not quite gone through, Dr. Pofu will be asking our PR people to again re-emphasize that fact, that bond notes are still legal tender and are acceptable. You also mentioned that we should not allow social media to drive the narrative, and I did mention in my presentation that our PR department is working flat out to make sure that we spread the message and spread the correct message. I don't know if there's anything I've missed, but that's what I picked.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mshavano. At this point in time, I'm going to open it up to the floor now. If you have a question or a comment, please raise your hand. Our mic will come to you. You just introduce yourself and which organization you represent, and you can go ahead and direct any question to our panel. So if you're there, just lift your hand so that we can see you and give you the microphone. Okay, there we go. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Tapioma Shakada, Executive Director of Maj Marevu Institute. I'm also an economist. I want to congratulate the governor and the PS on the announcement of the MPS. I think generally we welcome the introduction of the currency. But a friend who criticizes you is better than somebody who doesn't tell you the truth. I've got two advisories to the governor. The first advisory is that our challenge is to make sure that the use of the ZiG is increased. Let us reduce the dollarized transactions that are characterizing the market. If you go out in the market, it is 90% dollarized. And that is the mischief we must cure to promote the circulation of the ZiG so that people don't necessarily have to resort to dollarization. Now in this regard, what currencies is the public going to use to buy fuel? If you address that question, you would have addressed many problems. The price of fuel. The ZiG must buy fuel because that is our local currency. That's where the problems start. Once fuel is not priced in the ZiG, people will begin to chase the black market again to get US dollars. The other issue, which is an advisory, is that when you have got the US dollar still in circulation as a legal tender, operating alongside your local currency, which you want to strengthen, we always have got problems. Because the existence of a local currency and a US dollar at the same time will create that arbitrage that has always dogged the financial sector in the past. So I just want you to consider those two things, but I want to congratulate you for a good start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to respond to that?
Okay, thank you very much for those advisories, Dr. Mashakada. What I would like to say is we need to do these things gradually. Right now, we have a situation where plus or minus 80% of the transactions in this economy are being done in US dollars and plus or minus 20% in ZiG. So if you look at it that